Good evening, or good afternoon, actually, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to RLAfterShock, the longest-running developer independent podcast for everything that is Rocket League esports in the European scene. I am the Eternal J. Joining me is Digi Bay for episode 40 of the podcast. We've come a long way, haven't we, Bacon?
Yeah, we say each week that it's longest running podcast. Now it's sort of losing its gusto, Jay, because it's just expected.
But it's still true. It's still true. We are just the fucking, the longest running podcast.
But that's because everyone in
outside
Rocket League has commitment issues. Exhibit A this weekend.
Yeah, I know, right? And meanwhile, we're committed as fuck. I'm out here in Tenerife with no internet to support a webcam stream, right? And we are absolutely fine. We're breaking down all the week's news. By the way, this fucking place is insane. I really wish I had a webcam so I could show you, okay? Like, we have our own private pool, our own private jacuzzi. We have fucking, some of the greatest bathrobes in history. If you've been watching my Twitter especially, you'll know all about that. My God, those things are amazing. This place is insane, Bacon. Like, you should come out here sometime.
Yeah, let's do it. Boys on tour in Tenerife. I don't know.
Well, we did Lads on Tour in Valencia, so we can do Lads on Tour in Tenerife. There you go, a week out in the fucking whatever. Anyways, let's talk about Rocket League, because this week has been fucking manic. We've had drama, we've had rumors, we've had moves, we've had a qualifier, we've had literally everything except for a big LAN event called the World Championship this week. And we're going to talk all about it, including our big Roster Mania roundup and all of its newfound drama, as we mentioned a moment ago, particularly in the TSM camp. Dignitas' official third, and of course, all the new lineups that formed for the sake of the Dreamhack Pro Circuit Montreal qualifiers. Let's start with the news for this week, and we're going to start in the complexity camp with some near misses, I guess you could say. Obviously, earlier this week, they signed up to Dreamhack Montreal with Turbo Pulsar in favour of Flakes for their lineup. And Flakes put out a little tweet longer, just kind of clarifying the whole situation. He kind of, in a rare sort of moment of foresight, basically, he actually came out and explained the extra situation and everything that was going on with Complexity at the time. And he mentioned that essentially most of the shit was basically his fault. He wanted to rush through a roster move, and in the end, that kind of backfired. We can read through this tweet longer on your own time if you want to, but essentially the gist of it is that he was going to get kicked, but now he's not going to get kicked because they've decided they do not want to fuck about with any rosters, because all three players have had their own issues with their own roster teams in the past.
Well, no, the thing was, is they're like, right, either we kick Greasy or I'm off the team. So naturally the rest of the guys went, all right, see you later then. And he turns around and goes, wait a second.
Oh.
It's like a bad sort of like all-in, all-in in poker, and suddenly it's fucked up in front of you, and you just go to your mates trying to get a bailout or whatever, just like a couple of chips to stay in the game. Yeah, Flakes fucked up on this one, and luckily he's still got a spot on the team. We've seen this happen in the past, and that players have been dicked over by it, and again, it's all their own fault. I've got no sort of sympathy for Flakes here, and really it comes down to the rest of the team knowing that he's a good player. We know that they're getting quite pissed off of him, and he's shown it on stream and that, where essentially he points out the errors in his teammates without being constructive about it. He's just basically saying, you shouldn't have done that, or why did you do that? Those sort of things, which really as a team grind you down. So they brought Snasky in. Hopefully he can sort of, give Flakes some lessons in actually being human and having sympathy and empathy to his teammates. And that should hopefully solve the team, because we've been looking at Complexity for a while, and they could crack into a solid spot. Of course, they're in RLCS next season, Jay, aren't they? And they've been showing themselves as a top 6 EU team, of course, ahead of the likes of Dig. They've been beating out Veloce quite consistently. So who knows? Next season is pretty stacked, and Complexity are going to be fighting for a top 4 spot, and of course trying to get to the LAN.
Yeah, absolutely. This team has the potential to do that. So the fact that they've stuck together and realised the potential in their three-man unit, essentially, I like the idea that they're adding rather than changing anything to their roster. So Snasky should be a pretty decent affair for them. I'm expecting good things out of him. Obviously, his last team being the coach of the Dignitas side, which obviously has not been a very good thing for them lately. So we'll talk about that in a bit more detail. But I did want to sort of transition from a good recognised roster move and a good sort of what's the word? I don't know, like a sorted situation, like a decent sort of, decency has prevailed, common sense and level-headedness has all come out positive. This is a situation that we're going to move on to where the opposite basically has happened. Triple Trouble announced that they are going to be playing the Montreal qualifiers with ignite in place of Cassio. This does sort of hint to the roster rumor that Cassio is out of Triple Trouble. We have had that on a couple of a couple of sources as of late, well, it's not a good sign right now for everybody involved. I'm going to start actually by talking about like the whole Cassio thing, really, because we have heard that that Cassio might be the man on the way out. Died. You think Twitch has just died?
It's shown live for me. I've just had to refresh, and yeah, everyone else is saying podcast has just died.
Nice.
Let me have a quick look.
Awesome.
Craig saying his PC is just taking a large old dump on his chest. We'll see. Should be back. Yeah, we are. We're good.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Have we returned? Okay.
Yeah, we're live. I've got myself looking up at my TV above and showing off my double chin. So yeah, we're back.
Okay. We're back. Everyone refresh. Everyone refresh.
Fine,
So yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, that kind of got a bit weird. So there you go. So
where were we?
Where were we? Yeah, we're talking about Triple Trouble. So I wanted to start off. I wanted to start off with Cassio to begin this one. Let's talk about him because we had heard behind the scenes that Cassio might be the man on the chopping block for Triple Trouble if they hadn't done well at Valencia, and I wanted to ask, obviously he was able to play in the actual Montreal qualifiers. He was playing with another team. I believe it was
Veloce.
Veloce actually. Yeah. So, is the future for Triple Trouble a little bit contentious at the moment?
I'd expect they'll pick up Cassio again, because this was all a bit of a weird one, because even the middle of last week, before they had released, because of course, the Dreamhack guys must have seen that some teams got asked by teams not to publicly have the, attendees open up until roster lock. Makes perfect sense in this case. And throughout the middle of last week, it was Tadpole saying, oh no, these rumors about Cassio getting dropped, we're going to pick up Ignite, which someone had leaked, of course, out to everyone, and everyone knew it was happening. And he's saying it wasn't happening was very weird, to which, of course, when the rosters got announced, and there's Ignite on Triple Trouble. Funny that. And this all, to me, just looks a little bit like Cassio's still secured a spot. I'd imagine they'll give up on Ignite for this, but it's essentially where Ignite's been dropped from TSM, and we'll get onto that a little bit later, of course. It was just a case of Triple Trouble looking at Ignite, knowing that he is a very strong player, just in a bit of a rut, of course, with the TSM side, giving him a trial out. And it's that sort of maybe the grass is greener on the opposite side kind of deal, Jay. So they've tried it out. It's in a situation that I would probably say has actually hurt them, because don't get me wrong, Triple Trouble probably weren't one of the favourite teams to take a spot here, but they're playing it risky because we know Triple Trouble will have to fund themselves going out to Montreal if they want to, which is a lot of money, considering unless you make top 2, you're really at a loss for money in these Dreamhack events. So Triple Trouble sort of thrown away a solid chance to maybe get through, especially when there are free spots for this one. And I don't think they haven't learned a massive amount themselves, apart from Ignite clearly doesn't work. And most people could have looked at them and gone, no, your strength relies upon you being sort of like a triangle, not transitioning to just having Ignite on attack and the Tadpole and Ronaki having to figure some sort of new playstyle out around him.
Yeah, and I must say that I feel like Ignite certainly has dropped off the game a little bit in terms of his own quality. Like, back when he was part of We Dem Girls, he was looking amazing, and now things have just not been great at all for that squad, and not great for him. I think he has been one of the weaker elements. But that's a good sort of segue to talk about Ignite himself. Sorry, you got another point? Go for it.
Yeah, no, I was going to pick up on that point of Wagner. I think his quality is still there. He's still a fantastic player. The problem he lacks at the moment is confidence in himself. And we've seen that from tweet after tweet. And it's basically self-frustration. He probably knows that. He's at a point right now where the scene in EU is so volatile because there are so many good RLRS players and bubble scene players. Like, we'll have a little talk about the E-Girls and their run-in this weekend, and Bittersweet. And so it's a bit like last season, you know, and even this season where Astral's been promoted up into the Dignitas side, where essentially these new players are coming through. So I want to say, old guard, you know, Ignite only joined in back in season 5, I think it was, maybe season 4. Memory a little bit misty on that one. And he's sort of being kicked out, essentially. I don't see a proper place for him to go within the RLCS purely because competition is so stiff and everyone's like Triple Trouble here trying him out just in case it is a rut that he was in TSM. A roster move could reinvigorate him, and it just seemed like it didn't happen this weekend.
Yeah, especially when you consider that whole motion of confidence that you mentioned. You know, you talked about tweet after tweet, or how about Reddit post after Reddit post? Because as soon as this went out, the question went up on the subreddit. People were talking about it. Most specifically, iGnite and Remco went at each other's fucking throats.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, this is a very, very spicy one. There is so much to unpack in this in this Reddit thread that's going to be coming up on your screen if you're watching the video version.
This just looked like two angsty teenagers. They were acting like 14-year-olds here, Jay. It was embarrassing.
Absolutely. It was fucking ridiculous. So it started off with sort of like the Reddit post, obviously Triple Trouble giving the announcement, and Tadpole posted it up on subreddit because that's what you do with news. And then people asking about sort of questions in regards to in regards to you know, a couple different things you know, about the roster, stuff like, you know, Cassio couldn't go to Dreamhack. That might be the reason why he didn't opt to compete, even though, you know, he already proved he was playing for another team. And then iGnite was saying, you know, some stuff on Reddit, and then there was one little comment actually that came up and said if he was being straight there, it's a pretty bad look for either him or Remco or Metzer, since it means that either he told them that and left, or he gave the impression and that they all agreed to kick him. iGnite said the latter is true, so it's the implication. And by the way, this is also relatively decent rumor that we've heard as well, that iGnite is also getting kicked out. He's all but confirmed that on the thing by saying the latter is true. Remco fires back by saying actually neither is true, but it's okay to start some drama at this point. iGnite comes back in and says, okay, because for months we were all in agreement over that exact subject being discussed in that thread. I don't know why you commented on this when you know it's bullshit. And then it just goes back and forth, paragraphs after paragraphs, you know, shit flinging after shit flinging, and it's become like a massive mess, a massive fucking mess in regards to everything. Like, just Jesus Christ! Like, if you want to read through this subreddit or through this thread, then go ahead and do it, and you'll see exactly what we're talking about. Like, it is a true unprofessional shit show in the worst of unprofessional shit shows like you can ever fucking discuss. And it just goes to show
that is every other response around it is just people saying, oh, I'm mashing my F5 key or grabbing the popcorn, that sort of thing. They were just sparking their own flame here, and it was dumb.
Yeah. I think that it kind of does, it does make a mention, and it does sort of, how do I describe it? It does sort of like, you know, sort of, what's the word? I think it does describe, I think is the, or sort of highlight the frustrations that TSM have had over the last few months, because they've gone from E-League fucking champions, you know, national TV, winning a title on fucking national TV in America, and now just not getting any of that, essentially. They have had struggle after struggle, disappointing result after disappointing result. Last place at Valencia, the only RLCS team that did not make it past day one. And you got to imagine they're getting frustrated about that. This was the ultimate sort of level of, okay, we're pissed. We're pissed about this whole move. We're pissed about everything going on. You know, change was needed to happen. I didn't take it the right way. Excuse me, Ida didn't take it the right way. Remco didn't take it the right way. Everything was just kind of going down the shitter at that stage, and yeah, man, like, oh my god, like, what is in it for the rest of TSM?
I can just, just going to say Metzer, of course, would stick out of this, but I can just imagine him sitting there going, oh, why am I surrounded by idiots? Like, why do they do that? This is two guys basically having a pissing contest. The problem is they're pissing into their own drinks or something like that and complaining to each other. And it's just, why? It makes no sense why this went down. And just really, both of the lads need to have a long, hard look at themselves. Remco's, of course, known for this in the past. He's had massive shout-outs, and it's always come back to bite him in the ass. One of these days, he's got to learn just not to do this.
Yeah, I think they've all got to learn something at this stage, Metsonaris aside. And, fucking... I think there's not much else you can say about that. Just like, Jesus Christ, man. Like, oh my God. Let's move on and talk about Dignitas. They have officially confirmed Astral as their third man. I mean, are we surprised? He was playing Valencia with them. You know,
See,
they were always
yes
looking
and no.
for a third. Yes and no, really? Are you fucking sure? Like, we knew about the Astral move for months.
Yeah, we knew about the Astral move, but when they came into Valencia, it was just as a temp sub, a stand-in, essentially.
They
were
printed his
testing him
fucking
out like
name on a jersey.
Yeah, that cost what? 20 quid? Nothing. Who cares?
Are you 20 quid? Are you having a fucking laugh? Jerseys alone
When
cost
they own the
60
jersey.
quid.
Yeah, but that's because they're making profit. Right, that aside anyway, that's nothing compared to what these guys make and all of that. But what I'm saying is, after Valencia, with what was a very shit result, Astral coming in as sort of this new wonder child, remember what he had done for Method and such, everyone was just there looking like, okay, they've not made it to the last day. Are they going to stick with Astral, or are they going to try someone else out? Is this another tester? They're just going to use the online qualifier to see how he does online. Apparently, their scrims were doing very good. So they were just there going, okay, we'll just see after Montreal. So them coming in before the Montreal qualifiers and saying, nope, this is their new permanent third man. For me, that was a surprise that it was so soon, and especially since they looked very iffy in these qualifiers. Take the first series against E-Girls, getting 3-0 swept. Don't get me wrong, E-Girls were doing very good, but the rest of the competition was very up and down. 3-1 against RPC, fair enough. 3-2 against Method. Okay, interesting stuff there. 3-0 against Veloce, very good. 3-0 against Complexity, nuts. Admittedly, Complexity were playing with Snasky for that game, and then getting 3-2 against Barcelona. That's very good. But where is this inconsistently going at the moment? It's all because Astral doesn't seem to fit into this team. He's just a powerhouse as it is. Hopefully this gets fixed with time, but it was still very surprising that the announcement that he was a permanent fixture on this team was so early for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's more of a business deal, the reason why Astral's in this roster at the moment. It feels like it's just more convenience for the Dignitas side because, hey, they've got someone, they've got a guy, they've got someone who's doing something. And that's really what it feels like for the most part in terms of Dig. And again, it doesn't feel like a move that really fits in with the line of form that Dignitas are at right now. You sort of saw, especially from the Montreal qualifiers, which we'll talk about in a bit, they are very inconsistent at the moment with Astral. They aren't fitting together as a unit, not in the same sort of way that the old Dignitas sort of used to.
I would hazard a guess that this is probably quite a good money move for Dig, of course, getting rid of K-Dot originally to the Vitality side probably got them a lot of pocket money. We can say that right now. We know the money that Renault Vitality are splashing into esports. Definitely, they're looking to... I was saying, last year, they'll probably be another Cloud9 within the next 10 years. I would hazard to guess they'll turn into another Cloud9 within the next 6 months with the rate they're rocketing in all of esports, aren't they? And... this to me just looks like they got rid of Turbo, probably an end of contract thing there, and they were looking, okay, we want you to pick up the next best player that isn't signed because we don't want to put money into this. We're currently paying you guys a lot of money because Rocket League's inflated for salaries, and they just want to bring in the next best player that is unsigned, so of course they don't have to, buy out a contract, whether give him a solid salary, and we want you to stay up next season. That's probably the aim, maybe a contention for a lower spot, because Rocket League is so harsh at the moment with how spaces, only 4 teams can go to LAN out of 8, and that 8 is all that matters within Rocket League in the competitive scene, technically. So they're probably just saying, we want you to securely be in RLCS for future seasons, but at the same time, we want you to be able to contest the LAN and not get into the bottom areas. So it's a real harsh balancing act for the Dignitas guys at the moment. I do not envy Panda at all.
Absolutely not. Like he's got his fucking work cut out for him for the next few months, and I'm certainly expecting him to have a hard time, especially with Astron as their third. So there you go. It's official. It's confirmed. Not surprising in terms of people who are in the know. And let's move on to our final story. A bit of a light-hearted story. I just kind of wanted to include this in as just sort of like a joke because we have lost one of the greatest hairstyles in Rocket League history. Fairy Peak has made his peace with the metal life, and he's actually cut his hair. By the way, this motherfucker looks sexy as shit. Oh my god, I'm not gay, but I would 100%, I would do him right. This is insane. This guy, my god, look at him. Look at him. It's absolutely ridiculous. I love it. It's great.
It's an improvement. Like, instead of, he's no longer like, the lion he was before. But he's definitely, it's an improvement, and it's probably good because Vitality want to push that sort of I want to say the visual of a good-looking game, because you got to think these are marketing brands at the same time. They're not just about the esports and winning competition. No, it's about Logitech having these players that can sell their products and such, and especially since Vitality, I think one of the lots that got in on the was it Champion clothing brand purchasing out. So actually having gamers that can sell your product and look good is a massive benefit, because of course that brings a lot more marketing to your team. A big exhibit of it is whenever we're looking at Gfinity Elite Series J, Ryan Doomsy was continuously on every bit of advertising. The same with Snasky when he was on Fnatic and all that. It's because they're good-looking guys, and of course can just sell that product. And that's what they're a realistic goal for gamers. And you don't want your Chris Pine or whatever you normally see selling aftershave and clone that. No, you want actually people that look fit into the part and are also recognizable.
I mean, to be fair, I didn't really recognise Fairy Peak after this went out, so I'm not sure how true that sort of latter statement is.
Give it another month and you will, because you'll see him at Montreal, maybe another LAN. There's that. One fucking thing you didn't put on, I think, for this week is the Beyond the Summit LAN.
How the fuck did I forget about that? Oh my god!
Yeah.
Oh my god!
We brought it up, so that'll be 0.5. But yeah, if you see him again more in person, it'll be more common.
Let me get the link for Craig real quick. Bear with me 1 second. I can't believe I fucked. How the fuck did I fuck this up? I'm such a dumbass.
We've done it on stream, so we've definitely remembered it. Danny's saying in chat, when I become like Fairy Peak, I've had this hairstyle since forever. Fairy Peak's just got good taste. That's it. That is it. He is a more handsome bacon. French as well, so he's definitely getting all the ladies. We know that.
I'm trying to find the link so I can give it to Craig real quick. Because
it might have its own Twitter as well. BTS.
I was trying to find what the Twitter was. Is at BTS Rocket League. So I just give this over to the chat real quick. Sorry about this, Craig. I can't believe I forgot about this, because
that's weird.
It's been
Can we
so
actually
long.
talk about that as well? It's a bit weird that they for Rocket League events with everything, they make their own Twitters instead of just using the normal Beyond the Summit one. I don't know why, but I find that so weird. To try and section off a lot of viewership and such. Because the regular Beyond the Summit, don't get me wrong, is known largely for its is it Dota or League of Legends? It's Dota. But still, it don't matter. A lot of esports viewers like other esports, and the Rocket League Beyond the Summit has just over 1K followers. The normal Beyond Summit is well over 100,000. Looking at it now, just clicked there, 139,000. Why would you section that off? It just seems really weird to me.
It's a bit of a weird one, because Beyond the Summit themselves have had a bit of a contentious history with other esports. They're mostly known for Dota things, but when they made their first event in Counter-Strike, I don't remember the reception being all that great from the Dota 2 community. So they kind of was forced to kind of force their hand into doing a different Twitter for us. I think they've kind of applied that same sort of logic to Rocket League, even though for the most part I think there isn't a single reasonable person that doesn't like.
Even on that note, Beyond the Summit CS:GO Twitter, its own thing, only has 3,500. It's an absolute ball ache, and what the normal Twitter just does is try and repost a lot of what the other ones put out. But it just seems like you're diverging out, and it's just weakening the brand to that, which is very silly. Again, like you said, it's more fear out of getting annoyed by the main Dota 2 community, which is their biggest community naturally, what they run most events for. But I don't know, it just seems silly.
Well, let's talk about the event itself. Obviously, beyond the summit, I think the best way you could describe it is very similar to Gold Rush back when that was a thing. For those of you who remember Gold Rush, it was sort of like everyone chilling in James Bott's apartment, having some fun, playing some Rocket League. Basically, that is what this is, except there's a tournament behind it, and it's a much more relaxed environment. It's like an actual summit house where they invite all the pro players over, and it will be a fun time. It will be a really, really cool sort of, the best way to describe it, if you go back and watch Gold Rush, that's exactly what it is, except it's a 3v3 tournament rather than a 1v1 tournament. And I think that's probably a gap in the market that's now been filled now that we have the Beyond the Summit guys coming in. It sucks that Gold Rush didn't get the opportunity to run that, though. Obviously, with the way that things have worked out, Gold Rush not really finding a place in the modern landscape of Rocket League, it's understandable that they can't do that because it's so cutthroat, essentially. But yeah, no, having more tournament organisers
probably has been in the works for a long time, though, Jay. And the reason why Gold Rush didn't get it was probably because it's conflicting with this. Sonics naturally, instead of having to fund probably quite a large part of Gold Rush, saw this as a bigger event where the Beyond the Summit guys will be able to source in their own sponsors and such. So it's just more lucrative and makes a lot more sense, really, as a business viewpoint.
Yeah, and James has come out recently in an interview saying that he supports it. He's heard some of the plans that they've got for the Beyond the Summit, so I have trust in the fact that, this is going to be working out really well. Plus, it's another tournament organisers for Rocket League. That's something we need the most of right now. We've got Dreamhack, we've got Beyond the Summit, we did have WSOE and E-League at one point. I'm not sure if those are coming back because we were hearing about another Rocket League event from WSOE that should be happening around about now-ish or in the next couple of months or so, which I'm not sure if that's still going down because of the whole...
I thought would be late September, and just from how Rocket League works, they won't announce that probably until late August, just because it's like, oh, hey, we're doing this next month. Okay, do I have to book flights? Or yeah, we're doing it next month. Yeah, but the flights are really expensive. We're doing it next month. Okay, bloody hell. And then E-League probably happening again around what? That is pretty much what we need, yeah. E-League is late November, early December. It's 2 weeks normally after RLCS, because they take a lot of the seeding from that. So yeah, they'll happen again. Like I said, I trust in WSOE. They'll have a big reformat compared to what they did originally, purely because stuff like the social media engagement they're trying to do with the extra bit of prize pools just did not really work for that.
Yeah, that's all right. Don't worry too much about it. Also, more EU lands, please. By the way, if you guys have not noticed, there is another tweet on the BTS Rocket League thing saying which teams and personalities would you like to see at the event. I've already done this with Dallas, so I don't really want to do it too hard again. But if you do want to send me and Bacon out there, then of course you can reply to that tweet by tagging us in the in the responses.
But the problem is, Jay, for that though, is trying to get a visa in that short amount of time. It's not going to happen. It's going to be.
Oh, you should be all right with an Esther. Yeah. For a one-off event, you should be all right. That's how it worked on Dallas for me. Yeah. So you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Anyways, that's going to be it for our news. Once again, that's going to be all about we've got for the main sort of news topics. No mailbag either again this week. We've sort of been slowing down on mailbag. Of course, if you're out there and you do want to get involved in the podcast, you can join the Discord link via !Discord in the Twitch channel right now, or in the show notes and video descriptions of every single episode of the podcast, where you can join our little Discord community. You can ask us questions via the mailbag channel, and chances are we'll answer it live on air at some point in time. Again, we've had no mailbag for a number of weeks, so please send us some, because we are getting quite bored of not having any questions and any sort of really good discussion, because genuinely, when we see questions, some of them are really fucking good, really fucking good.
And
so
the mailbag ones, if it's just a little bit too short for the to put on broadcast, so it's a very simple explanation because it's been answered before, we do just reply in the Discord, don't we, in the general chat or the esports section, and go, oh, this is what we've covered this before, you must have missed it, because of course, like you said, we're 40-odd episodes in now. If we've covered it before, we'll still explain it and answer you. It's just, it's not worthy going back over on another podcast, isn't it?
Exactly. So, again, engage in the discussion, join the Discord, and find us on Twitter at RLAfterShock for all of the news and shit. Right, let's get on to our feature for this week. We're going to talk about transfers and roster moves and rumours, especially rumours as well, because we have had a couple. There's only really one that we can really verify, to be honest, though, Bacon. So it's not really kind of rumours per se. It's mostly just talking about a lot of the rosters that we've got formed for the sake of Dreamhack Montreal or otherwise, and talking about sort of their potential in the grand scale of Rocket League. Because once again, after the World Championship, after the major landslide, we always see there's always a massive shuffle in Europe, especially, and we can't really, we can't really go without sort of describing and talking about shit because like there's so much going on. There is so much going on right now, so we kind of have to do like an episode where we take some time out and summarize everything. Post the Montreal qualifiers. We'll be talking about these in isolation of the Montreal qualifiers because we want to talk about those in a separate sort of light and have its own like segment on the show. But I do want to talk about the potential for some of these rosters moving forward. So let's start with complexity. Turbo for Flakes. Now, we already know that, we were mentioning earlier, that Turbo is probably not going to be a part of this roster at all, basically. Flake should be back in for this one. But, let's play pretend for a little bit. Let's play pretend. Okay. And let's assume that maybe this was not going to happen. Let's assume that maybe Turbo was going to be playing in as the permanent third for
tinfoil hats out. Is that it?
Tinfoil hats are crystal balls. We see an alternate timeline in which Turbo Pulsar is part of complexity. What do we think would happen if that was the case?
Probably very little change. Rate both fairly evenly. They're both slightly toxic and get frustrated on comms, apparently, so there's probably no change there. They're both really strong mechanical players. And the choice to stay with Flakes was probably just out of, I would say, more common sense. You've already built up that chemistry as a team. Why would you go change that? It's just safer to keep with him as they are still growing. They've got in the coach Snasky trying to help with the team. So, yeah, Turbo would have been at best a side grade, only keeping on that same level. Most likely it'd been a slight degrade for the short term anyway, and take a few months and they'd be back up to that form and excelling. Turbo, I don't know why they wouldn't go any other way if they could patch it up with Flakes. Turbo's still on the market, and for most of us, we're looking at that now going, well, with this whole beef going on with TSM, it makes perfect sense for Turbo to try out with that roster, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say that overall, I would rate Turbo a little bit more highly based off experience alone compared to someone like Flake. So I understand why they want to bring in someone like him. But again, as you say, I'd say overall it probably will be a sideways movement rather than an upgrade or a downgrade than anything else, just because of the way that Flake sort of fits into that roster with the way that Turbo's going to have to take on the majority of the flashy sort of plays. I don't remember Turbo being really a very flashy sort of player for the most part, other than his little stint in Dignitas, essentially. Even then, he was one of the more quieter sort of players overall.
Well, he doesn't, by flashy, he doesn't do any sort of like mechanical trickery like the squishing muffin ballerina twirls and all of that fancy shit.
Yeah.
He just is consistently in the best place at the right time, can hammer that ball into net. And it's just, I want to say, by the basics, a very strong player. Still one of the top 10, of course, in EU, but it's just that case of he doesn't do any extra effort stuff, which again isn't actually needed.
Yeah, absolutely, especially in a team like Complexity, where again, I think for the most part it would just be a sideways movement. Obviously, they didn't have the best of times in recent tournaments. Again, we're going to talk about that in a bit more detail with the Dreamhack Montreal qualifiers. But yeah, no, I would say that overall in the long term, this would be a move that would have worked up pretty much sideways. I think they would have been sitting on the same sort of track for Complexity. Although I will say that it does obviously increase the risk of getting rid of Flakes. Obviously, with the established line that Complexity have found, it probably would be Yep, there goes your pen, there goes your dignity, and there goes Turbo from Complexity. Right, let's talk about Triple Trouble now. I Ignite for Casio. Okay, so obviously we talked about the drama in that one. I'm not a fan of this move, actually, to be honest. I still think that I feel like I Ignite's stock has dropped quite a lot ever since the We Dem Girls days. I feel like that he's not quite the same player. I love the guy, but I don't think he's the same player as we once sort of praised and hailed back when he was competing at Season 5 Worlds.
Yeah, like, the problem is, like you said, that confidence drop and it's like a massive slump. Triple Trouble seemingly the only team, I would argue, probably wanting to pick him up in this case. So, with that going so poorly this weekend, Casio is probably pretty safe. Like I said, there was a lot of whole things around Casio not being able to go to Montreal, wasn't it? Anyway, so they're bringing in Ignite now. Could go with them. I don't know. There's so much clusterfuck and confusion around this, so it's just that case of they were trying him out, didn't work, and I'd imagine Casio's still on the main team. No harm lost. Everyone knows, like, within esports, you want to have the biggest, best team. The Triple Trouble lads know that and they've said it before, like with a lot of the teams they've been going to, if they want to get a proper RLCS like org, they're going to have to win a LAN. They're not going to subside like a bit like, let's say, what Veloce did, where they just got an org originally to get them to Leipzig and pay the expenses, and then because they're in RLRS, Veloce came back. They're not happy for arguably, I'm making an assumption, but I'd imagine somewhere between $1,500 to $2,000 salary a month. They want the big boy, your Renault Vitality 10K or whatever. They want proper big salaries because they value themselves for that. They've gone to LAN, they think they're of that same competition. They're not going to go for half the salary that their rivals are getting. It just makes perfect sense. It's essentially what the previous TSM, when they were Weedham Girls, why they left Envy, They thought, we're not happy with the wage we're getting. We want a proper wage. And Envy went, no, you're getting that wage or we're walking. They thought they were good enough for them to walk and got, the E-League win and got TSM. So it makes perfect sense. And Triple Trouble are just holding out for now. We'll see how long they want to hold out. I mean, they did get screwed over a bit by the Red Reserve guys beforehand because they were on like you're on this salary for RLRS, you go up to RLCS, we'll bump up your salary to this. That's normally how contracts go and how teams try and pick up RLRS teams. We could see that come up next season, but for these guys now, it's just that go back to Casio, don't change anything. They probably learnt their lessons. Tadpole's a smart lad, pretty much captaining this team in that regard, and they'll stick with Casio and keep developing there, I reckon.
Yeah, I would say so too. There hasn't been any sort of rumours buzzing around of Casio looking to try it with other teams. We have heard of other members of Triple Trouble. I've only had one source come to me about that particular rumour, so I'm not going to entertain that conversation on the stream until I can verify that for 100%. But Triple Trouble,
yeah,
though, I feel
for
like
me,
they have
it seems like the other two, why would you break up Ronicky and Tadpole at this point? They've been together for, a year and a half? There's no point in changing it up. They're closing in 2 years together.
Like I said, I'm not confident and I'm not positive in putting out any particular details in regards to that until I get a secondary source to verify that. So we're going to keep that quiet for now. But in terms of Casio being back in on Triple Trouble, I feel like that Triple Trouble have hit a bit of a brick wall lately, and they haven't been able to go as far as they once did, or they haven't been able to go as far as the potential once promised, essentially. And I feel like a roster move might be on the cards for them at some point, but it's a case of when is that going to happen and who is going to be that player? Because I don't think Iron Knight's the man. I don't know if Casio is going to help drive them further forward than what they really are. I think we're going to start. I think they really have hit sort of their sort of the peak in their form as of late. With the quarterfinals placing at World Championships and nearly making it to quarterfinals as well at Valencia. I feel like there's going to be. I feel like the changes are bound for this roster, and I'm not sure how much further they can go with Casio still in the ranks.
Well, for me, it applies to the entire team. I love the Triple Trouble lads, but you just got to look at a realistic point. You've got different players with different abilities, and to me, Triple Trouble seem to be lingering around 4th, 5th best in EU, which is still fantastic. But when, you've got competitions like this, when they're an unsigned org, so they've got to go off their own dime out to events to try and get there. And again, this largely sums up to a big problem within Rocket League at the moment, where the biggest teams, of course, can sign up for these qualifiers, the ones that would go off anyway, just to get the free tickets out there instead of being held back. That's more of a system setup problem, really. Not blaming any of the big teams, because of course they're going to do that. It's better competition, more exposure for them. But it just seems like these systems are best for the unsigned teams that can't get there, and they're being held back because the big boys keep getting bigger, And so for the Triple Trouble side, where they can't near enough develop themselves because who knows, they're not making, I would argue, a massive amount of money from Rocket League purely because those prize pools are split, of course, between the players. And let's just say they're making between themselves a year $40,000 between them because, from prize pools and all of that. Arbitrary number, pulling it straight out of my arse. You got to think that's split between 3 players, so it doesn't actually become a massive salary, does it, Jay? So they still have to work jobs, which means that the guys like say Renault Vitality or PSG who can do this full time. Ferrer's just dropped his part-time job because his salary is able to hold that. they're being able to put more hours into the game and thus be able to excel and push that bit further ahead. Triple Trouble are in that awkward stage right now where they do really need an org to pick them up so that they can near enough unlock their potential and maybe go further forward. But that's still only a potential. Who knows if it actually really happens, because some players just, have a mechanical skill scene. We've seen that from many other guys that have had to drop from the scene. Exhibit, Marky Duda, and Chakron even retiring now, where they think they've hit the mechanical ceiling, so no, they can't keep up with everyone else.
Yeah, again, I kind of agree with everything that you just said right there, to be honest. I don't think we can add anything more to the conversation, so let's talk about the bricks.
Just for confirmation for everyone, we're not saying they're bad, we're just saying that for them to get further than what they are now, they do need an org and safety, essentially, to be able to push.
I would hope that our audience is at least educated enough to understand that much, okay? Like, we don't actually hate any of the pro players. Any sort of, shit we give them is exclusively for entertainment purposes, okay? So let's just talk about the bricks. They are bricking it at the moment. I'm kidding. A lot for Mystic. This was a fucking really good lineup at Valencia. And I feel like the Mystic is probably permanently out. Officially on Liquipedia, he's registered as being no longer part of that roster. That seems to be what lines up with what we're hearing behind the scenes, and it looks like this Bricks roster is going to stick. And they've got such potential. They've got so much potential in this lineup. I'm fucking excited to see what a lot can do, especially because they almost went to Montreal. They almost made it fucking happen this weekend.
Yeah, I was a massive doubter of the bricks, saying I didn't think it would probably work. Coming into this was my sort of okay, was it just a flash in the pan, or is this actually a team that works? And it works. Don't get me wrong, that series against Vitality, although 3-0 was still fairly close, 2-1, 3-2, 1-0, so that's 1 goal differential games. That is nothing. And of course, commentating over that Barca Bricks final, which again went to game 5. The problem there just being that the Bricks didn't have an answer for Barca once Alpha had near enough unleashed himself. I called him a French demon for a reason for that one, Jay, purely because he was fucking unstoppable. At that point, he was the best he's ever looked and probably one of the best players in Rocket League purely because of how good he is. We've seen this potential in Alpha for so long and it's proven itself once again. Sometimes he quietens down purely because Devo and Bluey step up, but in this case, in that final, Bluey and Devo had to take a sideline purely to Alpha to set him up continuously. In that last game, that game 5, Alpha scored 4 goals out of the 5 on his team purely because he was just unstoppable. It was absolutely nuts. And the Bricks just did not have the answer for it once Alfred really stepped on up. So Bricks getting to that point, it's sad because I was backing them. I said it on stream. I'm backing Bricks purely because without this spot, they might not go to LAN purely because, they've got to fund it themselves. So at this point, I'm saying over the next month, I've been speculating a lot, of course, playing for Mouse Sports. Mouse Sports, fucking pick up this team. You'll actually have the best Rocket League team you've ever had and get them off to LAN because, they've shown before this is the new top 4 team in EU, probably just pipping ahead of Triple Trouble at this point. I'm sure they can have a lot of back and forth there, which is going to be exciting. But they've shown it before from, the last 2 LANs, making it 2 top 4. Let's just get behind the Bricks because, they've got so much history in this roster. I've said it before as well. Speed slowly becoming one of the best players in EU, not by any sort of one specific skill, but just that he can do everything. He's a proper jack of all trades player, which is something that's got to be valued as well in the team. And I want to see these guys do a lot of good, just like I do from Triple Trouble. But the problem is that Bricks have Cooks here. You can't hate Cooks here, even though he's a lazy little shit. There's all the stories of him, you've got to call up his neighbour to get him out of bed for scrims and that. It's still Cooks. He's still an OG. I remember him, of course, playing up against him, of course, back in the old SARP days. So, of course, there's a lot of, nostalgia to this team, isn't there?
Absolutely, and I absolutely agree with your notion about Mouse Sports coming in to pick this team up. A lot is still contracted to Mouse Sports, so why the fuck not just I hate to say release Tigray, but release Tigray.
I don't blame Mouse for being a little bit cautious, but this should hopefully get rid of any of those concerns. A bit like me, I'm now fully behind the Bricks, thinking this is a good roster. It wasn't a flash in the pan, so hopefully Mouse will do that same again and pick up the team. Otherwise, they're not going to pick up a team. It's either this team or nothing, because we know that the RLRS placement team, the one that's got demoted, that is just completely separating out. They're done. That there's going to be at least 5 spots next season.
Absolutely, especially considering that a lot's not putting his focus behind finding a third for Mouse Sports, considering that, Tigray himself is basically completely fucked up up in this case, and again, understandable why a lot would go for that, because, he's got a lot of potential with the bricks. If Mouse Sports are going to decontract him, and chances are he's going to go to the bricks anyway, so why not just use whatever contacts you've got and any influence you have to try and get Mouse Sports to pick up the bricks. And yeah, it does mean that Tigray loses an opportunity, but I don't think that that's really going to be anything in the grand scale of things. Like we said for a while, Mouse Sports were done. They've been done for several months, and this is the best chance that the organisation is going to get to stay relevant in the Rocket League scene, is by picking up the bricks, who now look fucking fire, right? This will be, as you say, the best Mouse Sports we've ever seen across any of Rocket League, and you have a team that could potentially run through to a world championship, a dark horse world championship, but I can see them making land.
They would be fine for that 4th spot, but they could make land as well. Earlier on, I was saying about Ferry Peak and, the whole image that you get as a player in white orgs for that. Speed is by far the best on-screen personality of any player. That is, I don't care if you want to try and dispute it, you're wrong. He is so good on camera, on a desk, like talking to the commentators. He just it's so much fun to actually see him up on there. So that Mouse needs, a lot just go to him. A lot's fairly good on camera as well, and can talk a little bit of banter with the casters. So just a lot go to him. This can sell your brand. He's a decent looking lad, and of course, is fun, and he could get a lot of fans behind him. So that has got to be a big selling point for Mouse there as well.
Absolutely. Nate. I 100% agree with that one. That's the reason why Speed was one of our top picks, one of our guys that we were gonna bring on as one of the first ever guests for the Aftershock interviews. By the way, we're making progress on that one, so make sure you keep your eyes on all the social medias. I should be getting one together soon. I think you just given
the first proper spoiler actually for that by stating a name.
Look, right, I'm not going to say anything, okay? I'm going to ask at least a couple people. See who the first one's going to be, right? I've got 2 names in mind, at the very least. Speed is one of them. I won't say the second one for the sake of not spoiling it. But yes, keep your eyes locked to the Twitter at RLAfterShock, and hopefully we should have an interview coming your way very soon, assuming the schedules line up. I've just got to get my ass out of Tenerife, and then we'll be able to rock and roll with all of that. So, let's move on. Talking about, what was the Brix's departure of Mystic, he's going to be jumping onto Method, and this is just fucking ridiculous now for Method. Come on, is this the revolving door of Orange? Come on, the issue does not line up with their third. What? Method
are stuck in RLRS. They're a hard stuck RLRS team by this point, and they're just trying out as many players as possible and trying to. Essentially, what they're doing is a jigsaw puzzle, but the problem is that they've got 3 pieces or a bag of pieces, 1 spot left in there, and what they're doing is just ramming piece after piece, hoping it fits. Once they finally find one that fits, who knows what happens, but at the moment it looks a little embarrassing, but what else are they going to do? Because their competition, again, you look at their run through the bracket, they came up... their first match was against Comrade Gaming. They won that 3-1. Fairly decent scoreline. Fair enough. They then go to Game 5 against Dig. And there shows for me that they were just unlucky, because Dignitas is still a strong opponent. They're still bottom end of RLCS. Method, like I said, a hard-struck RLRS. So Method should have never really won that, probably by whatever third they had. So looking at this right now, I'm not too fussed. That's not a result. I think I can remember seeing a tweet from one of the guys saying, we're actually quite happy with the results from there. We just got unlucky with how things drew out. If E-Girls were at that point they were going up against, then it could have been very 50-50 against them. Going up against Veloce, we'll see how that goes, but they were probably not expected to win that one. So Method, going forward, I'm hoping Mystic sticks with him, because if Mystic doesn't, I'd imagine he's probably retiring from Rocket League. And that feels a bit bad, because he's been around for so long.
My problem with this move is that it still does not address the Rick's Ronde Burrito B issue, right? And we've talked about it for weeks and weeks, and it seems like it's falling on deaf ears. But the problem with Method is not their third man. It's the fact that the chemistry between Burrito B and Rick's has broken the fuck down. And I've seen nothing that seems to sort of fix that. You know, I've seen nothing that sort of tries to... I've seen nothing of them that's tried to mend that issue. I understand they've got to get a third man in for Method, obviously.
So,
but like, it feels like they're just throwing in whatever they can, just trying to get whichever teammate they can without any particular sort of, like, you know, rhyme or reason behind it, for the sake of, right, let's just get a third guy in and hope to God that everything works out. I have not seen this team improve at all, and it might be hard struck RLRS, but I can honestly see them dropping out at some point at this stage. Bacon, you shaking your head, you don't agree?
Yeah. No, I'm saying, like, I do love these two lads, but I also love the film Dumb and Dumber, and that is the perfect little I want to say comparison for them, because they're not addressing the proper issue, and they're just basically, again, like we were saying, it's similar to the whole Remco and Ignite thing. They're just basically not thinking of the right way to do things and how to address the issue. So they're continuously putting the blame on this third man. Don't get me wrong, Oslon wasn't probably up to that level of them, and so getting a new third in isn't a problem for me. But that the main core crux to them is that they do need to sort out their double commits, and it's like two good friends that don't want to break up. Even though, like we said, it's esports, you've got to accept that maybe for the health of the team, you've got to lose that friend. Like, a lot knew this by trying to break up Metzer and Magnus. Don't get me wrong, that backfired on them there, but sometimes it does work, and you've just got to accept that. You know, K-Dop leaving Panda, going over to Renault Vitality, showed that it does work there. And these two, I don't know, like, because the problem is, at the same time, you've got to think, they dropped Oslon, so they have to stay together for the next season of RLRS if they want to keep their spot. And I don't blame them for doing that, purely because RLRS next season is going to be so hard to qualify into, Jay, that they've got to find a third man, and then we might see one of them two swap out afterwards, who knows. But for Method, they're in a real sticky situation right now, and they're just going to be happy to hold on to a spot for next season and see where it goes from there. They need a coach, essentially, at this point.
We'll see. Let's have a look how Method play up. I'm imagining that they probably might send their team over to Montreal for the shits and giggles of it. They obviously sent them to Dallas, obviously, even though they didn't qualify. So let's have a look how Method do.
Montreal's cheaper as well.
True that. Yeah, no. You know what? Honestly, like, if you can, if there is a team out there, right, that thinks they can't fund Montreal, even though they funded themselves to go to Valencia, take a look at some of your ticket deals right fucking now, because for real, we were at Valencia, the group of us, and we decided it was like, how much would it cost for us to go to Montreal? And it's surprisingly cheap. So
it's like $100 quid extra a person. That's not actually that much.
Especially if you're the bricks right now. Especially if you're the bricks right now. Consider that before writing off the LAN event as a whole. Okay, seriously. Like, it's fucking actually surprisingly cheap. All right, let's move on to Veloce. Casio for Flame. Why? Why?
Flame couldn't play.
Flame couldn't play. Okay.
Flame's on holiday, so Casio is standing. That's absolutely fine.
Well, I'm
That's
on holiday. You don't see me
move.
skipping a podcast for 2 weeks in a fucking row. You know? Sorry, I didn't mean to be in Flame.
No, like, yeah. This is why gaming laptops is so good in so many ways. Is that, yes, you could do, in that occasion, exhibit speed back during RLCS.
Yep.
You know, being able to play whilst out there. You just hope that this could happen a little bit more often. But yeah, some players just not doing it. And this was actually the shortest qualifiers we've ever had. Again, not as many teams signed up for it. And the way that everything played out. But essentially, each day was at max 4 hours. It didn't even hit that. I can remember both days finishing before 4 p.m. and starting at 12. So, yeah, it's, as long as you've got the spirit, and you've just got to accept that you've got to treat it like a job, even if you're not a pro player. If you want to be a pro player, you know, you're on the bubble, treat it like a job and you'll go far. It's the guys that are spending 7 hours, you know, working 9 to 5, just grinding away at the games that you see really start popping off and getting the results. Big examples there. And I know it's a little bit in question, but EXO blurry and all of that. Yes, they're still in school, but they're spending near enough every single waking moment after school playing the game. And it is showing up with these results now.
Yeah, absolutely. I do feel, however, with the way that this sort of qualifier played out for the boys over on Veloce, that it was, I think, probably their weakest qualifier run. At least for the DreamHack qualifiers, if my memory serves me correctly. Yeah, they did come up against Dignitas and hit that brick wall, but I think I think they beat only the right people and lost to the right people as well. They didn't get much of a chance to showcase what they really had. But I think in terms of their overall placing, this is the lowest one they've had so far.
It's the lowest place. And we look at it and we're not surprised. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm hoping that this move is not permanent. Again, I imagine it probably wouldn't be at this stage. I feel like Flame fitted very well for Veloce. I feel like Cassia probably has a future being part of the Triple Trouble squad still. So, yeah, not much to talk about in this one, I don't think. But a little bit more to talk about is this little rumor that's been cropping up lately. Now, we've been sitting on this for a couple of weeks now, Bacon. And I wasn't comfortable publishing it in the last episode of the podcast because I only, as I like to do with rumors, I like to only talk about them when I have at least two sources that verify them, because that's what I consider to be journalistically. I consider it to be like
the bare minimum,
the bare minimum for for rumors and such.
Two independent, not relying upon each other guys can say, "Oh, we've got the same info." It's like, "Oh shit, there must be some inkling of truth to it."
Yeah, well, this was something we got told about before the last podcast, and I didn't want to publish it until I had heard from a second source. And then, after we published the last podcast, we heard from Liquipedia posted about this on their rumors page, and I was like, okay. Well, considering that our source says it's 100% going to happen and their source says it might happen, so two conflicting sort of arguments there. I believe that these are going to be two separate sources, therefore I'm going to talk about this. Bluey, apparently, is off FC Barcelona.
Oh no, he's back now. But do you want me to tell the whole story? Apparently, I've been told.
I'll let you discuss sort of like the grand scale of things. Like, it's a very complicated sort of story, but I'll let you talk about it, Bacon, because it seems like that we've sort of been sharing information back and forth for the last couple of weeks. So I'll let you sort of talk about this.
So this was just basically a whole clusterfuck. Essentially, that TSM spot Alpha was trying out for At the same time, he preferred what he was playing with at Barca, and as a crux of that, Bluey, who has always been a little bit of a toxic kid, a little bit of a frustrated muppet, really. The other two were there like, we might be getting rid of you. Essentially, they want to kick them off and replace them, to which there was even talks that Cooks had tried out with the Barca lads, whatever, in this whole little off-season bit. And the org then steps in and goes, "What the fuck are you kids doing? Stay playing together. Right, now you've got to go over to Poland for a show match." And essentially, the org has stepped in and told these kids to stop being idiots and stay together because they're putting in results. They've just got to sort out that sort of consistency issue when it comes down to day 3 of tournaments. We've seen it time and time again. So it just shows, again, for once, I commend Barcelona for stepping in and sorting out what is such a reoccurring, common, stupid problem with players, and that is just, oh, let's kick off a team because the whole kick a player off team because of, the whole grass is greener on the other side sort of mentality, when it's really not. So Bluey's staying, Barca's sticking as what it is. If it changes up, I'm going to be massively surprised, but we do know at the same time the players are a little bit sick and tired of what Bluey sort of gives, his old toxic mannerisms, apparently, from what we've been told.
Well, that's sort of like what kicked him off of the PSG team way back when. You remember?
That's what no one's surprised by. It was like it was more of a case of, when's it going to happen then? And we're surprised that, like we said, the big surprise is actually that the team, Barca, actually stepped in, the org, and just gone, no, stop being children and actually be fucking adults. We're paying you a salary. This is your job.
Can I just say, by the way, absolutely, well done to FC Barcelona for coming up and saying that, because not enough organizations do that. And I get why they do it, obviously, because they're, a professional football organization, so they're used to not having to put up with this bullshit.
They're used to dealing with immature people's shit, yes.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they slapped down the contract, this is your job sort of card, because, yes, absolutely, you should be doing that if you're an organization. If there's, a team change that could affect the dynamic of your entire squad, then absolutely you should come in and say, no, you work for me, therefore you do your fucking job, and we'll make the calls on who goes and who stays. You can have suggestions, but at the end of the day, the say it for us is final. That's the way it should be, in my opinion.
the example there of what's going on at the moment, and I think we saw it a little bit back, of course, with Freaky and that. Again, that was him fighting between the team. But Lefmere, currently over on NA with Ghost, has been dropped from the roster, but he's not been dropped, he's been benched. He's inactive purely because he's still got time in his contract, you know? So Mist has come in, and the team has just basically thrown their captain out, which is a very odd move, and Lef is now just laid to the wayside because he's still got time in his contract. And I don't know why Ghost again didn't just step in on this one, because that's really what needs to happen. I don't know why it's not happening, because you see this with orgs in other esports, don't you, Jay? Where they either step in. Sometimes, yes, if there's big infighting, they'll have to just bench a player and get someone else in new. But this seemed like it was completely at surprise to the players. So the org is sort of like, oh, the players have already done this and we've just got to do it, otherwise we're losing face. And it's all really odd and very immature of the players, really.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and entertain the idea of the roster swap itself with Bluey leaving FC Barcelona. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me in the long term if this actually ended up happening, because, again, it happened with PSG. Therefore, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened with FCB. So who do we get in to replace Bluey is the question of the moment. Now, some of our other sources have suggested the idea that iIgnite or Speed could be in. I think Speed is probably going to be sticking with the Bricks at this stage.
I think he tried with them.
Yeah, that's
again,
what
it was always that case of we're not playing. I'm better at, like, my team. I'm playing better with my own team instead of moving to you. So why would I move? It's basically trying to be smart, knowing about longevity, because we look at Bricks in the moment, and yeah, they're looking super strong.
Yeah, again, like most of the rumors that we've heard have been more about tryouts in terms of Bricks and iIgnite and Speed. So at this point, the only thing we haven't heard about is iIgnite potentially trying out for FC Barcelona. And honestly, no offense to that would be a very big downgrade for FC Barcelona if they went ahead and picked him up, because he just has not been confident. He's not been confident whatsoever at all in his line of form, and although Bluey might have a mentality shift, like although it might be a mentality shift with Bluey leaving in this toxic sort of level, like no fucking way this will be a great move. Not a chance in hell for me.
Yeah, because we're talking about like trials by fire. The big example, and it's just been brought up as well by Lucas in chat, was Chiefs over in OC had brought in this new kid, Hawk, a 13-year-old, something like that, really young. So that's a little bit surprising, because of course they could run into competition issues there, naturally, what with RLCS having to be 15 to go along to it. But they brought him in, and they just won out the Dreamhack qualifier spots. Like, straight through uppers, Jay. They did get, because it was a bracket reset for the finals, they did lose, because it was 2 best-of-5s there, they did lose the original one, and then came back to win 3-2 for the reset. But that is, like, when a roster swap actually works. You know, it's surprising, if anything.
Yes, very surprising. In terms of relating back to iIgnite, though, like again, I'm not 100% certain on this roster move. Like, again, I don't feel like this is going to be a thing. Again,
iIgnite's probably going to be stuck with moving in with an RLRS team. Like, if it follows through, I wouldn't be surprised if Method try and pick him up.
Well, let's move on to speculation then. Who else do we think could be in for FC Barcelona? There have been a couple of decent players that have cropped up as of late, and you know there's some decent moves that they could potentially go for, especially considering that they're FC Barcelona, for fuck's sake. You know, they're loaded. Mm-hmm. They can get whoever they want, essentially. So who do we think would be a good idea, a good call to fit in with this team?
I don't know. I really have no fucking clue. Like, I'm looking around thinking they could do Turbo, maybe, because he's technically a free agent at the moment, but like
I don't think that would be a good fit though. Like I don't think Turbo's aggressive enough.
That's it. When you say that, who's going to be a good fit?
Honestly, you know, I'm going to say something.
As well, Jay.
Has it? Hello, can you hear me? Hello, 1 2.
Yeah, you're back.
Am I good? Okay, sorry. Fucking hell. Tenerife, man. Tenerife. Anyway,
the only like for likes I would go with would be someone like Ixo, essentially, because otherwise, why?
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say as well. I was going to throw out an outlandish prospect, the idea that that Ixo would be the man to to come in, because he's been a fucking incredible player as of late, with his performances on some of the recent rosters, and it's something I want to talk about more in depth when we come to the Montreal stuff.
The actual line,
the actual qualifiers, excuse me. So we'll entertain that in a bit more perspective. But yeah, honestly, Ixo, actually a decent shout. He's British, just like Bluey. He's fucking great, just like Bluey. He can pop the fuck off, and he's been one of the guys that we've recognised for the longest time in the bubble scene as one of the forefront runners, essentially, out of those guys. So yeah, I'd say that's probably one of the best sort of pickups you could sort of talk about with FC Barcelona, I think. Of course, exclusively limited to the bubble scene.
That is it. And then there's only really I'm trying to think of other roster rooms we've got there's not really anything more, Jay.
Well, actually, there was something else I wanted to talk about as well, because actually I have heard this also on decent authority. Again, 2 sources. I will admit that I don't think that these sources are that trustworthy. So the best that I can do is sort of throw us out into the ether and say that, well, it's 2 sources, but I'm not 100% certain on this one. And that's the prospect that Turbo will go to NRG.
We're meant to be hearing about that today. NRG
Are we meant to be hearing that today?
I think so, that we're meant to be hearing about who they're picking, who's going to be the new third, but whether it's Turbo, that I don't know. That just feels more like a community wish. It's not really... I don't know.
That's my concern, right? That's my concern. That someone has literally thrown this at me to try and throw me off from the actual move itself. Because yeah, it does feel like a community wish. But the thing I'm also thinking about as well is think about the River Rats. Think about the way that Turbo played in with the North American style and the River Rats back then. And NRG are looking for a guy like Turbo, in my opinion. Would that be a good idea essentially to have someone like Turbo coming into NRG?
The problem is, who do they pick from in NA?
That's
again,
the thing
NRG
as well,
currently, they're redoing their rebranding today, actually, as well. But who do they pick from NA that would want to move? You look to the Cloud9 guys. No, they're not going to want to move. G2 are finally into some good form. Why would they want to move? You could try and pick up one of the old EG guys, the ones that got demoted, but yeah, they were demoted for a reason. They had some good performances. You look to maybe Drippe, but then you've got to buy him out of EG's contract, which just seems a little bit Yeah, who do NRG go for? It seems just like all the stars align, all the numbers make sense to go for Turbo, but that is a big move to get him in from EU, and it's one of those ones, a little bit like the Drippe move, of you don't know if it is going to work until he moves across. But it should do.
I mean, considering how well he fit in with the River Rats, I wouldn't say
that's what I'm saying. It should do.
It is less of a risk than someone like Drippe coming in from OCE, to be honest, and especially because Turbo is a proven talent. and he's still good. He might not be the most flashy player, but he's consistently fucking great. So you cannot deny the fact that he would be a solid pickup for any team that wants him, EU or NA, essentially. So that's why I wanted to talk about that one again. Take it as you will, because as I've said, I'm not certain of this being 100%. We probably will find out today with the NRG rebranding coming, and so and again, just keep your eyes on how that's going to work, because this could be an interesting story to follow and an interesting move that could go down. For now, though, that's going to be it from our roster rumors and various transfers over the course of the last week or so. Let's talk about the Montreal qualifiers next, because fucking hell, there's a lot more to talk about. There's a lot more to digest in this one, Bacon. A number of missing names from this particular one. TSM is the most obvious one to talk about when it comes down to the missing sort of teams, obviously because of the roster hell that they're in at the moment. But for the most part, all of EU
I've
sort of turned up.
I've got to quickly ask Craig to get this up on the stream, because this has just been posted on Reddit, and it is a beautiful meme. With all the tinfoil hat conspiracies going on at the moment. I really want to suss this out. It is so relevant.
Oh,
Craig,
my
if
God.
you could, buddy.
Oh, my God. That is actually beautiful. That is actually fun. I'm gonna wait for Craig to put this back up. This is actually amazing.
That's one new thing as well. That new NRG logo, I'm sorry, does look like it's from a 1980s like telecoms company as well. Like, I don't know why NRG is going for a rebrand. I don't know why all these big old-time orgs are going for rebrands. It makes no sense. I can understand the complexity one because they're trying to fit it in with the Cowboys.
Stop killing the fucking most iconic brands in all of esports.
Yes,
fuck you if you do that. Complexity, Dignitas,
so much
you can kiss my ass. Yes, absolutely. For those of you who are listening to the audio version of the podcast, let me just describe it for you. Basically, with NRG's logo being being basically a rainbow, essentially they've added like what is the last color needed to complete the rainbow. They've had Northern Gaming in their blue, Gale Force Esports in their sort of like is it turquoise? Turquoise sort of like a cyan colour. Then Dignitas in yellow down the mid. Mocket in orange on the right-hand side. What's the last colour we need? NRG's pinky red on the right-hand side. It's got to happen, boys. It's destined to be a thing. Right, let's talk about the actual tournament now from Montreal. Let's jump back in. So our results, Renault Vitality and PSG up at the top bracket, the top two seeds from Europe, and then down at the bottom, FC Barcelona, Triumph, the Bricks, and Dignitas in their lowest run to make it through as the final team from Europe, making your qualifier teams in order of relevance, Renault Vitality, PSG, and FC Barcelona. A pretty easy affair, I'd say, for Vitality, PSG, and FCB, to be honest. Like, FCB themselves have always had a very contentious run because they go through uppers until the last second where they fall into lowers and then they compete in that last match where it should be a relatively easy affair for them, and that's basically how it all went down for them. Vitality and PSG themselves also breezing their way through everything because, like, you know, they're just fucking great. You know, they're just really, really good. You know, they've proven themselves to be the top teams in the world right now, especially in Europe. Vitality and PSG winning the most recent LAN. Like, these teams are just looking, you know, great. You know, in spite of the issues we talked about with the FCB.
Yeah, that's it. Like, PSG is finally clicked. And again, that comes down to... Chaucer's always been a beast, we can say that, but it's really down to Ferrer. Like, this seems like a little bit odd for a lot of people, because, again, Ferrer had been in quite a bit of a slump. He's now got a lot of confidence in himself, and is really starting to pull his own weight on that team, and that seems to be the biggest one. Like we were saying before, it was a lot of confidence issues and chemistry work that was needed for PSG, and it seems to be starting to click. Ferrer is now being such a good wingman to Chaucer, and Fruity seems to have taken a lot of weight off Fruity, so he can focus on more defensive aspects as well as being that wingman. And PSG now looking good. Vitality, what do you expect? This is the EU powerhouse, is now the best team in the EU. I know PSG just went and won Dreamhack Valencia, but is without a doubt that Vitality is still the powerhouse of EU. And Barca, it's Barca. They have only sort of been dethroned to third because of PSG, haven't they?
Pretty much, yeah. You know, because PSG obviously have finally found the online and LAN form at the same time, so they've kind of stepped things up and now kind of catapulted themselves into the top end of the scene. And the worst thing, the worst situation that I saw us being in with PSG is the fact that they would go into Valencia, win it, and then come out at the back end of it and just, you know, choke the fuck.
Flop again, yeah.
Yeah, and so far it's already going well. It's already looking good. Like, they had some pretty staunch competition to deal with over the course of their run, especially in the case of FC Barcelona and the E-Girls. The E-Girls obviously proving exactly what they're made of. So, you know, they had the harder run, in my opinion, especially when you consider that Renault Vitality destroyed everybody on their way through. You know, so PSG themselves, I'd say that they had a pretty legit run. Vitality themselves also had a legit run, and they also had, but I'd say that PSG had the harder run. So for them to go through as simply as they did, not bad from them whatsoever. And Renault Vitality themselves, bit inconsistent as of late, especially with the Valencia result, but they're proving that they really want to take that top one spot again. They really prove that they want to take a decent crack at being the world's best one more time. And right now, I don't think they're quite there, but they are the best thing that we've got right now to number one.
Yeah, that is it. Like, you've still got the threat, of course, coming from NA. We can't deny it. With Cloud9 being so strong, we don't know about NRG, but they looked good at Valencia. Even with Fireburners, we'll see what happens when they make their roster swap. And G2 are inconsistent, but still well worth to actually cement themselves as a threat. So I like at the moment that we've actually got NA being a strong threat to EU again, because it's up in the level of EU. The only problem I see with NA is past like the top 4 or so, they're trash. compared to EU, and even the bubble scene we know is so powerful at the moment from EU that it's quite interesting. Like when we've got teams like the E-Girls, of course, coming through, we've got these unsigned orgs like the Bricks coming through, of course, and making big changes. That it's interesting there, and so I think it's coming down to, again, these roster swaps at the moment are like almost seemingly stupid, but it's because the big teams, like even Barca, aren't, I want to say, unavoided from it, that they're looking at these big players that are available that aren't signed yet and thinking, is it worth pulling from? And that can be the only problem I can see to one of these teams. PSG will stick together, Vitality will stick together. That's the only problem that could happen to Barca and dethrone them from being sort of third at the moment, would be if they make a roster move. They should stick together. They're stronger that way.
Yeah, a team that's not stronger this way, though, is Triple Trouble. Unfortunately, they had no luck in this bracket. This is a tough one. Much like how Veloce themselves had their worst performance at a Dreamhack qualifier, this was Triple Trouble's worst performance at a Dreamhack qualifier. Where once again,
they double down and double out.
Yeah,
that was it.
Best description for it right there. Like, shit, man, this sucks so much. Came up against a team called Godame, I think is how you say it.
Yep.
God damn it, and then went 3-2 down against them. I believe it was also a reverse sweep, if I recall correctly. Yeah, a full-on reverse sweep. That's a fucking yikes from me. And then getting swept out by Tox Mark Moon, which is the team of Tox Traptonized, Mark Baye, and Monkey Moon. Also should note that
that was actually quite a strong team on the day.
Yeah, and they weren't too bad, actually. And goddamn, it was Tigre's new squad with Nexo and Extra. But I would not have put Triple Trouble to lose against these guys. I kind of want to write this off, to be honest, with the whole roster move thing going on. But at the same
they'll
time,
learn their lesson.
At the same time, though, it's like taking a look at the tournaments like this, especially in the DreamHack qualifiers, where for some teams this is your only chance to get in, because if you can't afford to go to the LAN, then you're not going to the LAN without winning a qualifier. Like. It might be a lesson learned, but it would have been a harsh fucking lesson for Triple Trouble.
Yeah,
because this is like the second time. This is like the third time that they've missed out on a qualifier for DreamHack because of whatever mitigating circumstance has been coming up.
Yeah, and just like as a little bit of fun insight, of course, because I was the one that picked out the Rewind games. I picked off with the start with Dignitas E-Girls, because I was like, oh, that sort of a reality story, that we've absolutely love, and the whole what happens if they bring in Pondex instead of Tylacto, because Tylacto was on holiday, and Dignitas, if they finally clicked. That was quite fun as a first game. We were waiting for this second game come through. We were like, oh, Barca Triple Trouble, that's going to be one to see as well because of the roster swap. Of course, we had seen it at the point where Triple Trouble were 2-0 up, and we were like, oh, we just got to wait for the scores to come through. This has taken a while. And then suddenly Triple Trouble dropped down. We just went, what the fuck? It was at that point, we're even there looking at the goddamn roster, and we're like, we should have just stuck on to see PSG versus E-Girls, because that would have been a good game as well. And we were sort of all kicking ourselves that was the match we had to see. Don't get me wrong, it was a good match.
I don't even blame you for that.
I enjoyed it.
I don't even blame you for that, because I myself, if I was managing that stream, I would have been like, yeah, that should be an easy match, and then lo and behold, everything just kind of capitulated there for the, it just kind of capitulated for the Triple Trouble side. So again, it's just like, what do you do again? Like, it's another missed opportunity for this squad, and it sucks. It just sucks. It sucks so much because they've been looking for a chance to go to a LAN like this forever, and I think they've got the potential to make a decent run. Probably not with this lineup with iGnite, which is again part of the reason why I want to write it off, because I just don't feel like this is the right sort of team. But again, that sticking point of this is a very important qualifier. This is probably one of the most important online tournaments in the entire calendar, and this is how it's gonna go down.
Essentially. The way they should have looked at it is, don't use iGnite for this weekend. You want your strongest roster that you know is secure. Keep Casio. And then next weekend, this one coming up, is going to be the Rival Esports Summer Open. That's when you pull in a fucking roster swap in the Trial by Fire. It's not got anything more than just an online tournament that, don't get me wrong, good on Rival. It's 150 $1,500 up on the line. Top team taking, I think it's just a flat $1,000. It is. That's when you try out that new player because it should be in a fairly good. It will have bubble scene, definitely RL, RS teams signing up for it, and that's when the RLCS team should be going along for it. And we know that there's going to be 4 invited teams to that, and you should know that at that point that's going to be RLCS teams there. So someone like Triple Trouble should be looking at it going, right, this is when we make our roster swap and our trial out and do it quite publicly because you're going to get good competition there. You don't do it at a tournament where you really, really need to make it through. Like we were saying, there was 3 spots, so there was no doubt that Triple Trouble should have been fighting for that 3rd and final spot in the lowers.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see how Triple Trouble can sort of shape things up over the next couple of weeks. And again, going into the rival Summer Open, which is coming up in about 5 days' time, if I recall correctly. At least the Open qualifiers.
It is this Saturday, yeah.
So this Saturday.
On Saturday, and then
I should be back for that, so I can actually cast some decent level Rocket League for once. Sweet, that's gonna be great. All right, let's talk about another team that also have disappointed them. Dignitas are stumbling their way through every fucking tournament these days, it seems. They did not.
Like I said, bad start, but then they finally sorted it out towards the end. I'll give Dignitas the benefit of the doubt.
Considering the context of the e-girls, right, and how they had how their tournament worked out, like, I'm not too surprised that Dignitas messed up, but they had like a hard time. Obviously losing the e-girls 3-0, losing a game to RPC, which is the team of, hold on, let me see if I can look this up real quick.
Rafro, Polar, and Cheerio.
There you go. So a couple of decent UK lads out there. And then 3-2 against Method, which I think was a mini reverse sweep. Yeah, it was a mini reverse sweep on their part. Beating out Veloce pretty easily, beating out Complexity very easily. Again, both those teams with their own mitigating circumstances. And then just about coming in and just about losing out to FC Barcelona, which... Again, it felt like Dignitas found their stride up until they hit FCB, which is, of course, a good positive sign for them considering the Astral move. But from my perspective, they should have made it up to a PSG sort of level in the semi-final or in the quarterfinals before they dropped into that lower bracket, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look where they would have finished up now. So if they had beaten the E-Girls, which should have been the expected result, dropped to PSG, again, the expected result. They'd been put up against Pushing Gaming, would have won that. Would have gone up against Bittersweet, would have won that. And then have to face off against where the Bricks ended up, which we would have been fine them stopping there. So essentially, Dignitas got what should have been the expected result, but they had to really work through the lower bracket for it. And that is what is worrying. Again, that bad start. Good that they found their stride through that method game and then were able to free over Veloce and Complexity. But like you said, Veloce and Complexity were weakened. Complexity was coming in with Snasky, who looked good on that weekend, but it was sub-good. It was not the Flakes level of good, you know? So if they had gone up against Flakes on Complexity, Complexity had probably won that and they would have lost in a bad position. So Dignitas... doing better, getting where they needed to get to at this point in their careers, because of course they're on a massive slump. But it was still that case of they should not have dropped down there. And questions are still about this roster, but at least there's a glimmer of hope for them to get back to here through the lower bracket run, which we could have seen them do a Triple Trouble and even lost to probably Method. I think we might also they were going to lose the Method.
I think we might also expect to see them in the Summer Open as well. So there is a bit more online presence for Dignitas as well. I mean, I can't confirm any of this. I haven't heard any details. But based off where they're standing right now, considering they need that practice, considering that there's not much else going on right now in terms of the grand scale of Rocket League, I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of big names out there in some of the online tournaments, especially the Summer Open coming up, because it is a grand and a half.
Yeah, for the guys at home, the way Summer Open works is that there's an open qualifier on the Saturday. I think that's a 32-team tournament. First come, first serve. So if you're interested in that, make sure to go sign up now. If it's already filled up, the way Rival do things is that they open up qualifying spots. So it'll be 16 teams open already, and then they'll open a further 16 sometime during the week, whatever. But yeah, 4 teams go through from those open qualifiers to face off against 4 invited teams, seeded out properly. Now, if we're looking at teams, probably Vitality won't get invited because, well, they were invited, but they're too busy streaming, so they can't be asked to turn up. Dignitas will be a good solid spot because it's Dig, and of course, they're going to be wanting to keep trialing out Astral and get them as much experience as possible. I would imagine Bricks would turn up for it. Then you've got probably Complexity going along for that as well. And then who's the last and final team? Yeah, I doubt TSM because they're still trying to sort out their situation. So maybe you're looking at a PSG or a Barca filling out that last roster, which, like I said, if Triple Trouble don't get invited, then they should be signing up through the open qualifiers to keep trialing out if they want to trial someone else out new. And the same for any of these other teams. If they want to trial a new player out, this is going to be the best point for them to do it. I'd expect Veloce and to definitely try and make their way through the open qualifiers. The same as like your Nordvind. Eagle should definitely be in the mix there. Hopefully we see Bittersweet again. And this Tokmark's Moon squad, I can see a lot of good things coming out from them if they just keep plugging away, Jay.
Yeah, actually, just to sort of like, veer away from the main talking points, like, what is it about Monkey Moon managing to lead a pretty decent underdog run for a team of misfits you don't expect to make a decent run in one of these Dreamhack qualifiers? He did it with Xenomoon back in the Leipzig qualifiers. Obviously, those guys made it to the RLRS eventually. And here he is with Tox and Mark, and now they're doing basically the exact same thing, except without going as far as Xenomoon did back in the day. What is Monkey Moon doing that's making these teams do so fucking well?
No idea, because he's also been playing on a lot of other teams recently. Like, I know he's been signed up for the esports management stuff that Rocket Baguette are covering, and he played with Tox and Foe for that, from Dutch Bim Bam. Clearly, they've... I don't know what the whole true story is of that one. Of course, he's just come out and won another French one, which is and I'm going to get the whole name wrong, Okitane Esports 2019 on the squad of B Genius, which was with Porto and Melashiu. So he's got a lot of caliber. He's a strong French player. But he doesn't seem to, and again, this is coming from a lot of other players, he doesn't get on well with others. He can be a bit toxic, apparently. Like, again, from what I've heard, don't know the lad personally, but yeah, it seems like he's a great player, but a lot of players just have to get over the fact that he can be a bit of an arse.
I love that.
That seems to be a running problem within the scene, yeah.
Fair play. Well, let's move on to some of the bubble teams then, or at least one of the bubble teams that I want to highlight. Eagles. Now, imagine a world, Bacon, in which one of the top underdogs is called...
Eagles.
Yeah, mate. Imagine a world in which one of the top underdogs is a fucking E-Girls team, right? Literally a team called E-Girls. Now, stop imagining it because it's actually fucking true. What the fuck is up with Ixo managing to come on some random team and just catapult them to... a decent placing.
It's not a random teammate, Jay. He's playing with his teammate Blurry because Ty Lacto is away on holiday at the moment. They bought on Pondex. I don't know why they picked Pondex out of anyone. I haven't asked that question or whatever. But he came on, and they were so bloody good. It shows that maybe Ty Lacto wasn't the master brain, whatever we thought, and was building up this team, but that Blurry and Ixo have got some serious colour about them. And when we look at this roster now, RLRS for sure next season. The only problem I say to that is we were saying the same thing about Ixo and Arju and J-Walls back when they were main contain nuts last season, and that didn't work out so well there. So I just hope second time's the charm for this team.
Here's something I want to make a mention to her about Ixo and the main contain nuts and just Ixo's sort of history in general, right? Think about the teams that this guy has been on, right? Main contain nuts is one, Intellectuals is another, Aeriality most recently, and prior to that, #United. All 4 of these squads we've mentioned as being some big fucking teams that potentially could have been frontrunners for RLRS at one point. If for whatever reason or another, it just didn't quite work out. And I don't think Ixo gets a lot of appreciation for what he really does. Like, he is an incredible fast striker. Like, he is so underrated in my opinion. Like, I really think that he can make a run at an RLRS.
He's a top English player at the moment.
He is a top English player. He could be an RLRS level talent. I'd hope that he sticks it out with the guys over at Reality and manages to make things work. Or maybe this Eagle squad would also work out absolutely fine. Again, it just feels like whatever team he's on, they are destined to have good results. I think they're destined to have a decent run. At the very least, have a good opportunity at the bubble level before almost making it to the RLRS. And I'm hoping this time they actually do make it to the RLRS. It's a bit of a way away, so there's still a lot of stuff that can happen in between now and that point. But for real, man, Ixo has proven time and time again he is a fucking incredible player.
Well, it's even to the point of, can you remember the second season of the Ballistics Brawl? He had to be subbed on for Alpha under the Savage roster. So before they got picked up by Barca, and they still got to the semi-finals, taking PSG to Game 7 in a best of 7. They did better than what Red Reserve did, Triple Trouble roster, when they were with Speed, because PSG 4-1 them. And just saying, Ixo is a powerhouse. I'm just surprised that he's not been picked up. And if I'm looking to TSM at the moment, disregarding the whole, Turbo going to NRG, TSM at the moment, realistically to me, have two options. It's Turbo or Ixo at this point, because those are the two best players to pick up at this moment in time.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I want to see Ixo do well. I want to see Ixo do something really fucking amazing, and I think he's got the potential to do that. It's all just a case of just getting it together, essentially, and it's just finding that one consistent line of form, or not having some issues with someone who can't make it to LAN, or not having some sort of problem, with other teammates getting signed, which is a very serious issue with some of these other bubble scene players who aren't under contracts, which is the main fear, I think, for the likes of the Air Reality lineup. But for real, Ixo, I think he's a standout guy, a standout player, and I want to see him do more, Bacon. I want to see him fucking really, really have a decent rest of the year, basically.
Yeah, essentially, this is a lad that it's been building for so long that he is going to be the next big thing. He's still only 16, so you got to think he's of the same age as Scrub. So we just expect big stuff from him, and it just comes down to a team actually taking the risk and picking him up. Like I said, he definitely, one of the reasons he's not with Method at the moment, I would imagine, would be either Method don't like him, or it's a case of he thinks he's going to be able to go further with Blurry and Tylacto, or whoever the third is. For me at the moment, Ixo is not the captain, of course, of his team, but he is a big promising factor, and he just needs the right teammates, which he's been doing with so far, to really go far, because just getting to the lower semis essentially is a nuts factor. They're beating out teams getting further than teams like Complexity, your Veloce, getting to the same levels like Dig, beating out Method. Their actual rivals are those RLRS teams, and they're smoking them out of the water.
Let's hope big things coming out from the Air Reality girls side. Let's see whether Pondex or Tylacto will be the guys in. I'm not really sure at this stage. We'll find out as things roll on. For now, let's move back into some of the bigger squads, because Bricks barely missed the mark this time, Bacon. And this kind of highlights the issues that we think of the Dreamhack qualifier format, with how essentially all three of the teams coming through are organization teams, and yes, they basically what's the word? How do I describe it? They basically were the best teams in the qualifier, I will admit that much, but really a qualifier should allow a team like the Bricks, who aren't signed, who don't have the opportunity to pay their way to the LAN, to should allow them to qualify. And they almost did. They almost did, Bacon, but they hit one brick wall in FC Barcelona. Other than that, they took down the Eagles, who we've just hyped up. They had a really close series against Complexity, beat the shit out of Dutch Bim Bam, only really lost confidently to Renault Vitality, the only 3-0 sweep in their record. And other than that, just that one result, that one fuck up in FCB, and they no longer have a chance to go to Montreal.
Yeah, essentially the problem here lies, I would argue, as straight up, for next season, Dreamhack, CJ, if you're listening in, or D-Pants, just change it up so that the top four from each from the two main regions, if you want to include OCE or SAM, that's up to you, but NA, EU, just make sure that there's a secured spot for top four teams. You're not paying for them, but you're just saying, right, you're not allowed to compete in these qualifiers, but we'll make sure you do have a spot at LAN, and you're don't worry about getting tickets to LAN or if that sort of stuff. You're invited. You're coming along. And of course, the orgs will take them because they're the big teams. We've seen this before. And then you leave the qualifiers for the smaller orgs or the other teams, because I would say Complexity aren't in the top 4 yet, and it also, that's putting your bar for competition a little bit like what the Renegade Cup was, Jay, where it's RLRS teams are allowed to play in, but it's really all about those bubble teams coming through that we want to highlight, and this should be a similar thing right here.
Especially when you've got so many teams that will be competing at the main LAN event as well. You might as well concede.
Vitality, PSG, Dig, Complexity, Method. Not
even name value. I'm talking about just generally the number of teams. It's 32 fucking teams per DreamHack. Come on. How much more? How much more do you fucking need, essentially? Let the open signups be for the for the big squads, and then I'll let the qualifiers be for the small squads. Essentially, is what I believe. Is how I believe.
It's fueling the grassroots, essentially, ain't it?
Essentially, yeah, absolutely. So.
Because you look at, say, the open qualifiers for, let's go to Valencia here, right? Not the open qualifiers, sorry, the main event. And you look at the teams that got qualified through PSG, Vitality, and Barca. They were all gone anyway. From NA, you had G2, After4, and Space Station Gaming. Brilliant. After4 getting along. Probably wouldn't have been able to either way. Space Station Gaming, we don't know about their commitment to the team, but fantastic. The same with... sorry, I'm looking at Montreal here for whatever fucking reason. Because After4, we will claim After4 got their spot from NA this weekend purely because both Cloud9 and NRG didn't play in it. And it shows the big difference because Space Station and After4 both got those qualification spots, which actually makes it look so much better. But sorry, over in, because it was carried on over from Dallas, it was Dignitas, Cloud9, Solar Mid, and Randy Ribbons River Rats, because remember that was the EG spot. And then from the EU qualifiers, Vitality and Barcelona, who have made it anyway from NA, that have been NRG and Peeps. So finally, NA seems to be the only one where it actually works, where the unsigned teams get through. But that's because NA doesn't have the same number of stacked teams at the top. That is it, essentially.
Pretty much. So for EU...
So the problem is, EU's too good. There we go.
Basically, our entire mission statement of this podcast. Thank you for watching RLAfterShock. Good fucking night. Again, it's tragic the bricks don't fucking get this shit, man. It really is, because now, as Speed said on Twitter, there's a good chance that they're not going to get a chance to go to Montreal now. I think it was Junior that also put out a tweet saying, I can't believe in this day and age that, fucking there isn't enough money going around to the point where, organizations can't send these teams to LAN, which is kind of like a bit of another comment about the state of Rocket League right now.
It was more the case of there's not enough money going around that, the players that go, for you to literally be able to say cover your own costs, you would have to make top 8, and just to make any money you've got to make top 4 as players going along to a LAN event. Now that feels bad when this is sort of seen as one of the pinnacles, and we've been talking about DreamHack for us is much more prestigious than RLCS at this point, because it's a much harder competition going through because you've got so many more teams. And of course that sort of level, that it just feels wrong, essentially, that for teams like this, like the Bricks, which are a well-beaten team, like Triple Trouble that did go to LAN, can't go along purely because it is not feasible for them to go along to these events. That just seems dumb.
Absolutely, and I think that it shouldn't be that way, because the Bricks are a top team, and I feel like they can do a decent job at being a top team. But, alas, the world is not perfect, and Rocket League is cruel. Let's move on and talk about the complexity as our final topic of the day. Because, they had a rough time. They had a pretty rough time. Again, the caveats there in the roster move and the same sort of thing we were talking about with Triple Trouble. But still seeing these guys lose to names like West Alors, and again, Tox Mark Moon is also a decent enough team, but West Alors, who the fuck are they? It's not exactly a great look for complexity in the moment, considering where they stood in the past. And kind of goes back into our mentions about how complexity this roster move was definitely not a decent idea.
So, complexity of playing with Snasky, we have to remember that for the day. Westerlords is D7, Meloshisu, and Kieran Yoni. Now, this is a very strong-looking, up-and-coming French team. You remember D7, of course, Jay. Kieran
D7
Yoni
is the only guy I remember. I don't know who Meloshizu and these look at Japanese fucking names. Holy shit! Like what the hell?
Hey, weebs are from France as well. It's not just the UK or America. You can get French weebs.
But why do you have to make my job difficult? Christ, guys, please.
But yeah, essentially this could be a strong up-and-coming French team purely because can you remember the old Baguette squad sort of broke up into every single way, shape and form. So who knows, this could be the next French powerhouse team to come through because there's always one in RLRS.
Well, let's give them a little bit of benefit. I mean, let's still like talk about complexity, mostly focus on them because like again, in discussion with how things have worked out for them, like I know that they were playing with Snasky these days, and it didn't. You know, I feel like that. You know, there's still a trouble abound for complexity if they continue to go down this route. I'm hoping that this is a blip on the radar and a recovery point, essentially, to talk about. Going into the future, I think.
Yeah, again, like I said, complexity. This is a disregard weekend. They're playing with Snasky, not Flakes. They've fixed up their problems. Hopefully Snasky can try and get that team in order and basically stop them from being such naughty kids. And we're sorted. That's it. Complexity still en route to being a top 4 team. The problem is that top 4 is so stacked at the moment, which is why we love EU.
Indeed we do. And with that, we're going to leave you with the show. And another week in EU action for RLAfterShock. A bit of a weird one, honestly. Again, I've been struggling to keep up mostly because of how fucking, way up in essentially, with everything going on in Tenerife and everything. It's been a fun week though, Bacon. It's been a Dreamhack Montreal qualifiers, a little bit of spice and drama as well. I love all that, and of course the one rare time we actually get to dip into some of the roster rumors that we've had over the course of the last couple of weeks. So fun episode, I say.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, it's been a good weekend, like you said, because of the Dreamhack Montreal qualifiers. I was a little upset because I had to broadcast on the Saturday.
Oh, no, I was upset because I didn't get to watch any of the stuff and I really wanted to cast the Montreal qualifiers, obviously it being the last qualifier in the Dreamhack circuit.
That was it. We had to run 3 casters on the Saturday, and then we got in Trox and Fuzz. Great acts coming in near enough last minute because you had put yourself down, and then suddenly it's like 2 days before you're like, oh shit, I forgot.
Legit.
This holiday thing.
I've done so much traveling in the last 3 weeks. It's just like I genuinely forgot I was going to Tenerife. I genuinely completely forgot. I was like, right, great, I'm back from Dallas. Time to get back in the Rocket League. Last qualifier. Let's fucking. Oh no, hold on. I've really messed this up. I've really done goofed. And I honestly, do you know what? Like going into this one, I was half tempted just not to go. I was half tempted just to stay at home and just play out and play out the Montreal qualifiers. Whoops. You're right there, Bacon. Calm down.
Yeah. Fine, just knocked over an empty mug, so we're safe.
But I was so tempted not to come out and cast those qualifiers. I'm kind of gutted that I missed out on that chance.
You're fine. You've got Summer Open next weekend, so we're
Summer
fine.
Open next weekend, yes. That's the big thing we're going to focus on. On Saturday and Sunday, we've got the EU Summer Open in association with Rival Esports. Hoping I get to cast that. I'm going to try push if I can get Grand Finals, because I really want to cast some good fucking Rocket League Bacon. And I hope that you also get the same thing as well.
We've learned now that the Grand Finals are never actually the best game. It's the one beforehand. Always turns out to be the better game, ain't it?
That is true as well, actually. All right, you know what? I'm just going to say, give me second shift, okay? Failures, if you're listening, I'm gonna start hampering you. But yes, we're going to cover all of that next week on next edition of the of RLAfterShock of the podcast.
As well, I'll be wanting that second shift because it's going to be the Asian stuff next weekend. Qualifiers for Rocket League China. Hopefully going to be getting on board with that. So I'll be trying, because I've been championing we'll be trying to get on for that, which means we won't be able to do first shift next weekend because
I need to
there's a little
hit
bit
up
of an
Nish for that,
overlap.
actually. I need to hit up Nish for that. I need to ask him to get me back on, because I did promise him that I would do something in regards to APL as of late, especially because he was one of the guys who supported me for the ESCA thing, so I need to pay him back some way. Anyways, but yeah, that's other than that, that's basically going to be it for this week's episode of the podcast. So let's keep your eyes on everything in regards to the Summer Open. It's going to be a good tournament. Rival always put on banger fucking tournaments, and I'm really excited to see another one come through. One of the most prestigious online events that we have in the Rocket League scene. So Summer Open is going to be a fun one. Until then, though, you guys can keep up to all the stuff with the RLAfterShock podcast via the Discord links. Again, if you're not in the Discord right now, you're watching live on Twitch, it's !Discord in the Twitch chat, where you can join our small community, have a chat about everything that is Rocket League esports in Europe and around the world, and of course, ask us a mailbag question, with chances I will answer it live on an episode of the podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at RLAfterShock via the Twitter links, of course, also in !Twitter if you're watching live on the Twitch chat. All these links are also going to be available in the show notes and video descriptions of every single episode of the video and audio versions of the podcast. Speaking of those, you can go ahead and check us out on YouTube via RLAfterShock through the search bar, and of course on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and many other major audio distribution platforms for the podcast edition of the show. You can go to anchor.fm/RLAfterShock to find your favourite platform or request your favourite way to listen. Bacon, any final thoughts before we head out and I go back to the pool for Tenerife?
Yeah, how the fuck do you talk for that long without taking a breath? You've been doing, like, just dunking your head under the water in the pool and trying to hold your breath for as long as you can. Actually, fun note on that, like, the world record or something for holding their breath is, like, 20 minutes or something ridiculous.
How the fuck can you survive
it's
like that?
It's all about hyperventilating, like, getting one of those oxygen tanks and just basically going, like, into that for, like, a good 2 minutes and then, you know, just going underwater with lungs massively inflated and filled with air. It's impressive. Go have a look into it. That's not healthy,
that's not healthy. And theoretically, it shouldn't work as well, because they say 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, 3 fucking minutes without air. How the fuck can you go 20 without taking a breath? That makes no sense.
I think the longest without doing that hyperventilation thing is somewhere like close to 11 minutes.
Oh, no, that's bullshit. He's dead. He died. Sorry, he died.
No,
it's
people,
simple as...
like, you're thinking these people have been training for years upon years to be able to
No,
hold
he
their breath,
died.
which
He
is
died,
nuts.
Bacon. There's no way you can survive that.
He died
He's
and then
dead.
suddenly got, like, someone put a bit of electric in the water and electrocuted him back to life. And it's like, 11 minutes. That's how long I was there for.
Right, we're going to get off the airways. Thank you again for joining us this week for another episode of more of RLAfterShock.
Doodles.